Welcome to the Deep Dive, your shortcut to instant expertise. Today, we have torn through all the detailed reviews and analysis of the massive new release in the world of Panem, Suzanne Collins' Sunrise on the Reaping.
And this is a huge moment for Hunger Games fans. Our mission today is, well, it's pretty complex. We want to synthesize all that critical knowledge you need about this fifth book.
Right.
We're looking at how it expands the lore of the capital, but maybe more importantly, how it finally fully constructs the tragic origins of one of the trilogy's most pivotal characters.
And the central premise, it takes us back, way back, 24 years before Katniss Everdeen ever volunteered. So this is a deep dive into the 50th Hunger Games, which, for anyone who follows the lore, means we are talking about the infamous second quarter quell.
And that context is just, it's absolutely crucial. You're not just reading a prequel, you're gaining this essential understanding of Panem when it was maybe at its most cruel.
Before the Mockingjay even existed.
Exactly. By focusing on Haymitch Abernathy's time as a tribute, the book really establishes the psychological foundation for the rebellion that was already sort of starting to germinate underground.
Okay, so let's unpack this. We have to start with the biggest draw, right? Haymitch Abernathy.
Of course.
In the original trilogy, he's such an enigma. You have this sarcastic, alcoholic mentor who is District 12's only victor for decades. And the question has always been, what happened? What trauma turned this skilled kid into the broken man we meet?
And the book finally gives us the answer. And it's comprehensive and it's agonizing. It's the origin story not just of his victory, but of his profound self-destruction.
So it's not just he became an alcoholic.
No, not at all. The reviews really highlight that it frames his alcoholism as a direct psychological response to a very specific trauma inflicted by the Capitol after the games were over.
So looking at that psychological breakdown, what are the specific things the book finally explains?
Well, for one, we finally learned the root cause of his hatred for the Capitol. And it's a hatred that's so personal, so visceral, it kind of eclipses even where Katniss starts out.
Yeah.
The reviews confirm that his survival and the unique way he won his games was immediately seen by President Snow as an act of defiance, an intolerable one.
So the Capitol's response wasn't just punishment.
It was so much worse. It was a targeted, long-term psychological destruction. They wanted to use him as a warning to everyone else.
It is a chilling distinction. It almost means his drinking wasn't just a coping mechanism. It was a state the Capitol, allowed? Maybe even encouraged.
Precisely. They let it happen to show other victors that nobody, and I mean nobody, escapes the game's whole. Not really.
And his famous sarcasm. The sneer.
It's a shield, a defense mechanism he developed to keep everyone, especially the Capitol's mind games, at a distance. And suddenly, his mentoring style with Katniss and Peeta.
It makes perfect sense.
It all clicks into place. That weird, chaotic mix of not caring and then being fiercely protective. It's all born from the lessons he learned in his own games about brutality and betrayal.
So the book isn't just adding backstory. It's recontextualizing every single thing we saw him do or say in the original books.
Right. It adds this immense, deep emotional weight to every cynical comment, every moment of support.
It transforms him.
It does.
Yeah.
He stops being just the cynical mentor archetype and becomes this fully realized, tragic figure whose entire life was weaponized by the state. And that's a huge emotional payoff for readers.
So that's the man. Let's talk about the event that broke him, the second quarter quell. The reviews all agree that the 50th games were significantly more twisted than any others.
Oh, yeah. This is where the lore gets really dark. The 50th games were designed to terrorize the districts on a much grander scale.
And the main twist of this quarter quell was doubling the tributes.
Doubling them. 2 boys, 2 girls from each district. So you have 48 kids in the arena.
48.
And that wasn't just for a bigger bloodbath. It was about maximizing the collective psychological trauma on all of Panem.
It's a clear escalation. Total contempt for the districts. What about the arena itself? You said the Capitol was experimenting.
The arena is described as exponentially more deadly. And it was built for psychological warfare, not just survival. The reviews are careful with spoilers, but they say it involved this stunningly beautiful but lethal landscape.
Designed to force betrayals.
Designed specifically to force painful choices and shocking betrayals. So it wasn't just about finding water or shelter, it was a highly managed theatrical environment engineered for maximum despair.
And the Capitol tech.
Way more advanced. The reviews talk about the use of illusions, traps that preyed on the tributes' minds. They also tested out new, highly aggressive mutations. It just made made strategy incredibly intense.
So making an alliance would be almost impossible.
Almost. With so many competitors and an environment that's actively trying to make you turn on each other, it just promoted shocking violence.
This focus on strategy and brutality, it paints a really stark picture of Panem's cruelty just getting worse and worse.
It shows the regime wasn't static, you know. It was constantly looking for new ways to crush hope.
And that President Snow, even back then, knew that to keep control, the cruelty had to keep escalating.
Exactly. Or the districts would just get used to it. The 50th Games were the peak of that brutal experimentation.
Which connects directly to our next bit. The rot inside the capital itself. These books are political thrillers as much as anything. So how does Sunrise on the Reaping expand the world building outside the arena?
It fills in so much crucial political context. We get a much deeper look at district politics, which the reviews say is a major highlight.
So not just the poverty of District 12.
No, we see how the local political structures were run, how they were corrupted by capital overseers. We get names and faces for the local oppression.
But what about the capital itself, the center of all that corruption?
It really details the sheer opulence and moral decay. It confirms the rot was deep long before Katniss's time. But the most interesting political part might be the media manipulation.
How was it different from what we saw later with Caesar Flickerman?
It was a bit cruder. The reviews imply that back then, the media was less about glossy branding for the tributes and more about blunt propaganda, just controlling the news feeds.
So they had to work harder to control the narrative.
Much harder, because the games were so obviously cruel. They were trying to stamp out any story that even suggested a tribute could be defiant or competent on their own terms.
And what's fascinating is this idea that the unrest didn't just spark with Katniss. The book shows that early rebellion networks were already forming.
That's a huge piece of lore. It makes it clear that the foundation for the eventual resistance for District 13 was already being laid. Panem was a crumbling building, politically unstable, and struggling to contain these little underground movements.
And Haymitch's win was a symptom of that instability.
A very visible one.
So if things were already rotting, how did Snow keep his iron grip for another 2 decades before Katniss? Does the book get into that?
It implies a period of dramatic overcorrection.
Yeah.
After the 50th Games. The sheer scale of it, the 48 tributes, seems to have shocked even the capital. And that led to a tightening of control, stricter enforcement, and a renewed effort to psychologically destroy any victor who showed too much strength. Haymitch was basically victim number 1 of that new policy.
He became the living embodiment of Snow's effort to restore order.
You got it. It just adds this incredible, necessary historical depth to the whole universe.
We're seeing the long political game the Capitol was playing. It elevates the series beyond just a post-apocalyptic story into like a real examination of authoritarian regimes.
Absolutely. How they use spectacle and cruelty to maintain power even when they're failing from the inside.
So for anyone eager to pick it up, let's talk about the reading experience. What's the style like?
The reviews all say it's classic Suzanne Collins. Incredibly fast-paced chapters, they're almost relentless. And just very strong emotional punches.
And the psychological tension is still there.
It's there, and maybe even amplified, because you're so focused on Haymitch's internal struggle.
It sounds like it's a demanding read.
It is. The analysis we saw suggests it's an even sharper criticism of power and propaganda than the other books. It feels more mature. And that makes sense, given the subject is the total destruction of a young adult's mind.
We should probably cover the weak points the reviewers mentioned, too. What should you be aware of before diving in?
The main thing is the tone. This book is exceptionally dark and emotionally very heavy. It's not a light read.
Not a cheerful escape.
Definitely not. The heaviness is the point, but you have to be ready for it.
And what about fans hoping for more direct tie-ins to the original trilogy? Cameos, that sort of thing.
They might be a little disappointed. Because of the timeline, it takes place so far in the past that it really has to stand on its own. It's focused squarely on Haymitch's era.
But the verdict is still overwhelmingly positive.
Overwhelmingly. Especially if you like the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and that exploration of the capital's history. This is being called one of the best entries in the series. A must-read for anyone who wants that deep Panem lore.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The key takeaways seem pretty clear. We now have the full, tragic context for Haymitch. We understand his alcoholism and cynicism as symptoms of targeted state cruelty.
And we have a comprehensive look at the second quarter quell as a horrific escalation, all designed to maximize terror.
And finally, we see a Panem that was already rotting from within, decades before Katniss, the rebellion was long simmering, not just a spontaneous spark.
Right.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you. We now know the Capitol was experimenting with new, crueler rules during the 50th Games. But if that cruelty backfired and led to instability, what does that imply about the quiet, meticulous internal manipulation President Snow must have maintained for the next 24 years?
That's a great question. The outward savagery might have been dialed back for a while, but the quiet psychological control,
It must have only intensified.
it makes Snow's reign not just brutal, but a masterful exercise in controlled, targeted oppression. The silence before Katniss wasn't peace. It was just intense management.
A truly chilling way to look at the entire series. That is all the time we have for this deep dive into Sunrise on the Reaping. Go forth and be well informed.